You trust your own voice and you trust your intuition.
Well, that's such a beautiful metaphor and good for you.
I'm really bringing all of these skills, talents, and abilities to the table.
Yeah, I think that's so brilliant. Hello again, and welcome to Climbing the Corporate Ladder Without Breaking a Heel. I'm your coach and host, Dr. Cynthia Bentzen-Mercer. I'm really excited about today's guest. I have been following her, stalking her, chasing all of her things on all of her socials, and became a big fan before we had the chance to meet. Today we have Donna Hicks Mitchell. She is a sought-after leader and author in the realm of people development and diversity, equity, and inclusion. She works with Fortune 500 companies and organizations around the globe, and she serves in a lot of roles. She is everything from executive coach, corporate consultant, retention strategist, we could use more of those, master facilitator, and speaker. Donna started her career on Wall Street on the derivative trading desk.
That's right.
Mastering the corporate climb, which was pivotal in how you then began leading and advocating for diverse voices, which I love. With a particular influence, and we're going to dig into this, on developing authentic influence and the importance of relevance for female leaders. I love this fun fact. If you've been traveling of late and you're in and out of JFK Airport, Donna has a background in serving as a former voiceover artist, and she's the familiar female voice at the airport. And not that we'll have a chance to get into it, but I love this fun fact. You made the final round of the show, The Apprentice. So that had to be an interesting process, to say the least. Well, welcome, Donna. So happy to have you on the show today.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here. I absolutely love all the work that you're doing. So thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Let's jump right in. One of the things that I found really interesting early on as I was listening in and learning more about you and what you talk about is this notion of authentic influence. Tell us a little bit more about what that is, what that means.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like to think of it as something that we've had all the time. It's what we're born with. And one of my favorite movies, if I may, is The Wizard of Oz. And the fact that Dorothy had everything she ever needed to succeed, everything she ever needed to get home, was already inside of her. The difference is she wasn't aware of it.
Right.
So our authentic influence is truly coming back to ourselves before we were tainted, before we were told not to go outside of the lines, before we were told, shh, be quiet, your voice doesn't matter. So authentic influence is coming back to ourselves and operating out of our highest point of influence, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we talk a lot about on this show, and I think the person listening can relate to, we're all formed differently, but the themes, at least in our research around women around the globe, is that formative experience of being quiet, being humble, being dutiful, sitting still. How do you work with women in particular to get back to that authentic self? How do you change all of that inner narrative?
Absolutely. I believe it begins with trust. Trusting ourselves, trusting our voice, trusting our intuition, which is such a leadership gift that women need to know that they operate in their in that realm at all times. And so I think it's really important to begin with the fact that you trust your own voice and you trust your intuition. That feeds quite naturally into everything that we do. We are able to move from a stronger position when we're moving out of trust, because we know that our steps are aligned with our purpose, with what we believe, with our truest North Star, if you will. And so that's where I really began with helping in the mindset shift of you can trust you, because if you don't trust you, who else will? Trust is so important. And so that's where we
Yeah.
begin.
It's profound, and you make me think of something I from my own experience, and I think the experience of those that I've worked with clients that I coach, there's several things that erode our trust of ourselves, it feels like. So we talk, we kind of alluded to the formative experiences. But
Yes.
my experience was also the need to show up in a way that I thought was going to be most credible in a male dominated environment. Right.
What did that look like for you? What did that look like?
It looked like, and I'm still recovering, right? It looked like showing up with it from a mindset perspective rather than a heart or an intuition perspective. In other words, my interpretation of that was that I had to be the smartest, most educated, brushed up on all the data and facts. And I feel like, and it was pointed out to me in my own discovery in the last year, that you can begin to lose sight of that intuition when you're so focused on data and evidence and showing up in a way that you think is credible. Is it possible that you set aside listening to your gut? I mean, what do you think about that?
I'm so with you. We set aside our superpower.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything that we will ever need is already inside of us. And that intuition, that guide, is what helps us to make the best business decisions. Now, I'm with you. I'm a very high achiever, type A personality. I want my data. But I got to the point where I could only consume so much. And I can prepare the best that I could, and I'm able to make decisions on demand. However, I've got to trust that what I know is formative enough to guide my decisions, as well as let my intuition play a part. There are so many times in the corporate environment, whether it's the boardrooms of Wall Street or whether I was working for one of the top banks, where a decision had to be made, and there was that small, still voice. That inkling of intuition that even though the data was pointing this way, maybe not.
Right.
Go with the intuition. And time after time after time, it has proven over the long term to be the correct decision. So I think our intuition, especially as women, plays an integral part to our success. And it's our guide. It's our guide back home as well.
Yeah. Did you find in your own experience, because you've been with Ford, American Express, American Express, you've been with major corporate players.
Yes.
Did you find in your experience there your ability to tap into your intuition? Did you have that discovery early in your corporate career, or did you find it later as you went into entrepreneurship? I'm just curious about what was that pivotal moment where you went, you know what, I need to listen more to that intuition and stop muting that inner voice?
Absolutely great question. So for me, it happened in the corporate sector because oftentimes I was the only woman and sometimes the only woman of color in a lot of spaces. And so with that, when a decision needed to be made, I didn't have the sounding boards that I've learned to develop a little bit later. And so it's me, myself, and I, the I being my intuition.
Right.
Girl, what do we need to do?
Yeah. Talking to yourself in a
Yeah. So I've learned to operate in my intuition quite early, and I've learned to trust it quite early because I know what I know.
Right. I think that is a superpower.
You're right. It's a superpower. It really is, but we're taught to kind of like push it down. It's woo woo. It's not.
It's so that is so true. That is so true because I think that there's, the woman out there that can relate is I learned early on that the animated, outgoing, talkative side of me that was really present in my youth was not always taken seriously. And so for me, entering the business world,
Sure.
Very often as the youngest for a long time, not in the latter years, but for a long time, the youngest and only female in a lot of settings, I sort of led with my head and muted my heart. But here's what was really fascinating for me is that I found that age was the pivotal moment for me sort of happened by accident as I reached my early 50s in the corporate environment. I felt that I had the credibility. I'd put in the time. I had reached the level in my career journey that was kind of the pinnacle of what I had hoped and desired to reach. And so, not that you don't have anything to lose, but it was definitely this moment like, I feel like I've earned the right to speak my truth.
Love
I
it.
will tell you that it wasn't always very popular, though.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was suddenly like, wait, you're speaking on behalf of the employees. You're speaking on behalf of the underserved. You're speaking on behalf of those that are going to be impacted by this big decision.
Indeed.
And it didn't necessarily always follow the corporate line. And so
Indeed.
it wasn't always popular. Yeah. So what do you say to the woman that says, well, I feel that intuition. I hear that part of me talking, but it feels risky.
Indeed. Um, I would say to that woman, try it anyway. Go for it. Because we have to think of our UVP, right? Our unique value proposition. No one has the voice that you have. No one has the thought process that you have. And just as a side mention, everyone's worried about AI taking their jobs. AI
Yeah.
cannot take your job or cannot take your place if you were bringing something unique and valuable to the table. And I would say the same thing to the woman who's asking, should I take the risk? Yes, take the risk because there's no one like you and no one else is going to say it in the way that you say it if you don't. So
Right.
take the risk. The rewards outweigh the risk so many times over. I've been in environments and I've been in situations where I've had to make critical decisions and I was all alone and I had to really rely on the facts because, as we mentioned, we get prepared, right? Access
Yes.
requires preparation, and I
Right.
had access. And for that access, I was responsible for it. And so I never took it for granted that I'm sitting in this space of influence. But with that, I knew that I had to be prepared for the moment. When that preparation is all done, go for it. Go for yours.
Yes, I
Because
love that. I take that bold step, right? You have
yes.
to take the bold step. And candidly, I mean, if if that's not welcomed, if following your gut and your intuition and that which is inside of you, using your unique voice and your superpower and your space of influence to say the thing, if that's not welcomed, then that's another signal. That's
Yeah,
another
indeed.
signal that you may not be any longer in the right spot,
I
right?
agree so powerfully. Failure is not our enemy. Failure is a teacher. And I'm not saying that every decision that you're going to make or every decision that I've ever made is the correct one. But if we take the mentality of failing forward, right? Lessons learned, lessons that we can apply, lessons that others can observe and learn from, then it's still a win.
Absolutely.
So never be afraid of risk.
Yeah,
Ever.
I think that's so brilliant. You mentioned AI, and I want to come back to that because one of the things, two things that you touched on, really AI and this notion of relevance. I just did a keynote recently for an association and
Love.
of project managers, and so one of the things that occurred to me is, as independent contributors, how are they thinking about relevance in an era where technology and machine learning and AI are going to be able to do so many things? So you touched on it, but say more about this notion of relevance and how does the woman listening stay relevant in this crazy fast moving environment where we are so worried. I'm not, but many are, that computers and robots are going to take over the world and take over all of our jobs.
Indeed. I probably need to write a book on this. Position yourself to pivot. Position to pivot. What do
Say
I mean by
more.
that?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, indeed. I have a client. I do executive coaching, and one of my clients is in a field that is saturated. She's worked for the best companies like Google and Amazon, the large companies, if you will. I won't necessarily say the best, but she's worked for some very large companies, very heavy footprints. And because her market is saturated, she was a bit concerned about what her next step is going to be as she's currently in the job market. And so I helped her to kind of shift the lens of going in as she always has. Let's get ready to pivot. Let's get ready to take that skill set and give it a nice, what do we call it? A redo, what do we call it when we are, just redoing everything about ourselves, rebranding, if you will. And so what I've asked her to do is take a look at it from the lens of authentic influence and relevance. And I asked her, I said, are you good at AI? She says, absolutely. I dominate at AI. I says, well, reposition yourself as an AI expert in your field. That not only pulls you out of the crowded playing field, but now you have something fresh to offer that organization. Because in reality, when we do our research and look at what's happening across the landscape, companies are really struggling on how to adopt AI, how to, roll it out in their infrastructure, their systems. There's a lot going on. So you take your very well polished skill set, if you will, rebrand it as the AI expert in that field. And now you have positioned yourself outside of all of those thousands of people who have the same skill set, positioned to pivot. And that's what it's about.
Yeah. It makes me think about some of the advice I've been giving and talking with some of my clients in this notion of pivoting and positioning differently is so often we think so narrow as it relates to where our talents and gifts will apply, right? So, an individual, a woman who's spent her entire career in casino gaming, an industry that I spent some time in, or the woman who spent her entire professional career in healthcare administration, we quickly forget that those non-teachable, hardwired part of our DNA talents and gifts and superpowers are so transferable.
Aren't they?
And right, so we this idea that we sit there and we think about the skill and knowledge piece, and quite frankly, that's not what most organizations ultimately, at least, should be hiring for, right? They should be hiring for those leadership gifts, that potential that's bigger and beyond the industry. And I think that gets to your point about you have to position yourself for the pivot and not narrow yourself into one little niche.
Absolutely. You hit it spot on. Those transferable skill sets, right? How transferable are your skill sets? And it takes a moment for us to really, some of the work that I do with my clients is have them really acknowledge and celebrate all that they bring to the table. Acknowledge what is it that you have and who can benefit from that. And now let's think about new ways in which they can benefit from that. And so it really begins with the acknowledgement that I'm really bringing all of these skills, talents, and abilities to the table. And then it goes back to our first point of trusting myself,
right,
to be able to hold that gift and then to disperse that gift as needed, where it's needed.
That trust piece, it is so profound. When you said trust, I was sort of hanging on my seat. Trust who? And then you said yourself, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of a mic drop moment, right? That trust yourself is so powerful. It does call the question, though. For myself, I've experienced it as recently as this morning.
Sure.
Where you're questioning, like, do I really have this figured out? Am I that? And there's a lot of controversy around imposter syndrome and how we language it. How do you think of how do you help the woman get out of her head with the negative narrative so that she can trust the positive version of herself, right? Because if you're going to trust yourself, you got to be telling yourself the right stuff.
Indeed. Here's some good news. Nobody's got it figured out.
Well, thank goodness. Donna, I thought I was a slow learner. I wasn't sure.
We're all in there together. It's so clear and simple that it doesn't seem like it would work, but I'm going to tell you a secret.
Okay.
And all of our wonderful listeners.
Yes.
It starts with gratitudes, plural. It begins with gratitudes. Now, most people think of gratitudes in the space of, oh, I'm grateful that I was able to get that promotion. I'm grateful I did this or that. But we've got to peel back that onion just a touch and really talk about what gratitudes are. And they are. I am really grateful that I got out of bed on that morning that I really didn't feel like I could take another day. I'm grateful that I held my ground when they told me to be quiet. I am grateful that I have a voice and my voice has something to say. So you peel back the onions of the performative parts of what we're grateful for to
Yeah.
who we are and
Right.
why we're grateful for who we are. That puts a whole nother spin on it and gives us a whole nother level or depth of gratitude. And so to your question, how do we move from the negative to the positive? There are so many positives. And I ask my clients to begin a journal, if you will, of gratitudes. And all you got to do is open that and flip through a couple of pages and you'll be inspired.
Yes.
And it positively can impact your day. It can positively, literally positively impact your day and change your mindset and the frame of mind that you might have been in if it was negative.
You know, when I was in the corporate environment, I don't have one now. Maybe I have an electronic one called
Did you?
Testimonials, but I had it was more of a file. It reminds me of what you're saying. Anytime I would get the nicest card or an email that was complimentary, I'd stick it in my I Love Cynthia file. And
Yes, I love it.
right, so it was external, and I appreciate that's different from what you're suggesting, but the two things combined, right? This notion of the gratitude of going deeper though and getting at that core of I'm grateful for those moments I was resilient. I'm grateful for that time that I did the hard thing. I'm grateful for this physical body that I'm, able to do this work. What I'm hearing from you is it's getting down to not the action per se.
That's right.
But something that's so much deeper, that's core to who you are, that you carry with you as evidence that the next thing you can also tackle and accomplish because
Oh,
you
my
have
goodness,
those core
yes.
things. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's a form really of self-affirmation. It's a form of self-love. And it's a form of service to ourselves. As women, I think you and I might have touched on this briefly when we met. As women, we don't take the time to take care of ourselves a lot of times. We're so busy serving others. We're so
That's right.
busy serving our families, our jobs, if you will, our children, our communities. And so for us to take a little time to do a little self-love, I think it goes a really long way. And that's something that's core to my coaching. It's core to my beliefs. And I'm definitely a self-love advocate. I love me. I really do.
I love you saying that. I've been single for a couple of years, not in a relationship, I should say, for a couple of years. And
Yes.
what I have learned in those 2 years, and this is my story. It's not necessarily advice for others, but what I have learned in the couple of years of not being in a romantic relationship is I really enjoy my company. I enjoy my time alone. I enjoy me. And that was something that was really necessary. And I think that when I'm ready and when, the universe is ready, that if that were to change in terms of being in a relationship, so much better prepared
That part.
yeah, because I never thought that I didn't love me, but I definitely, if I'm being honest, look to others to fulfill a part of completeness, right? Versus feeling like I'm complete all by my own self. And it could be coupled at some point, but I don't need somebody to fill a gap because I'm okay all by my own self. And it feels like that relates to our professional environment as well.
It should.
Yeah.
It should indeed. And so when we and bravo to you, congratulations, because that's a hard journey that a lot of people haven't yet reached.
Right.
So yes, great,
Thank
great,
you.
great.
Thank you.
One of the things I was going to say as it relates to the corporate sector is that we've got to come in equipped. One of the things that I always say is carry your own fuel. Because when you get on E, you can't rely on Bob or Alice or, Tina to give you fuel. You've got to carry your own fuel. And I've been to the pump several times only to find out that it was empty. There was no fuel for me outside of me. So I carry my own fuel. What does that mean? That I've got to make sure that I'm cognizant of my own relevance, my own importance, my own strengths, my own beauty, my own confidence, my own capabilities. I could go on. But, we've got to carry our own fuel for our journey. And that might take some preparation, systematic preparation, knowing where we're going, what it'll take to get there, and planning for the journey ahead. And so that's really critically important. And I wanted to share with you, as you were telling me about your last 3 years, I actually did a big girl thing this year for my birthday.
What's that?
I went across the world solo.
Oh my
I
gosh.
I went I went to 3 continents by myself.
I am
Whew,
impressed. I did a
I was
weekend by
impressed too.
myself. At the beginning of this, I did a weekend by myself, and I thought that was, a really big girl thing.
3
Amazing.
weeks. And
Amazing.
I went to the Canary Islands. I went to Spain, Europe. I went to Africa by myself. And so when we talk about those moments where,
Yes.
we're alone and we get to know ourselves a little bit better, we get to challenge a lot of the things that we thought were truths. When I came out of corporate, quite honestly, I was a mess, and I didn't know I was a mess because I had been performing at such a high level for so long. By the time I got off the treadmill, a somatic injury occurred in my spine. I had a 40-degree curve to my spine. I couldn't walk. I couldn't stand up.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
stored trauma from all
Wow.
of the injuries that had occurred during that corporate journey. I say all that to say, when I was standing on the banks I think I was in Tenerife, where the African trade winds we were on our way to Africa, but the trade winds, the African coast, and I was standing in the middle of all of this volume, and I was just like, wow, who am I? Where am I? Where am I going? And I had an opportunity to have some really critical talks with God.
That's amazing.
And for me, I know that I'm filled with such passion to help others that I knew that my mission at that point was extremely clear. And so now I am on a mission to help all women understand, appreciate, and value their own relevance because some of us got lost along the way. And so I want them to take my hand and I want to show them the way. I want to be a guide, if you will, to the capacity that I can. Because happiness is already in us. We got to trust that it's already there. Everything that Dorothy ever needed, it was already there.
Right.
Just click your heels 3 times.
Yeah, such a beautiful metaphor, and good for you to take that time. And I want to say this to the woman listening that's saying, "Wow, bravo, that's amazing," but maybe saying, "Gosh, I don't have the time or the circumstance or the finances or whatever the reason to do something like that." I'm just going to put a plug in quickly for that is why I'm so constantly talking about one of my frameworks, which is the 7-minute pivot,
Love
which
it.
is every day, 7 minutes. It's not meditation. It's not your spiritual time. Those are important. And if you follow those practices, that's great. This can be additive, but it's setting an alarm for 7 minutes and saying for this 7 minutes, what is the barrier or the thing that's in front of me, that's on my heart or on my mind, that's consuming me, that's either negative or standing in my way, and you really dig under and you ask yourself why 3 times at least. Well, why do I feel that way? Well, why? Well, why? Because when you ask yourself why the 3 times, you get past, sort of the fluff, and you get underneath
Sure.
what's really there, and then choose one thing, one tiny thing you can do that day to move slightly forward and pivot in a different direction. So getting back to your pivot, this is the incremental baby step pivots. And
love
so what
it.
you experienced on that amazing journey, that time to really sort of just find yourself and your calling and your purpose. To the woman listening that says, gosh, I'd love that, but I can't do that right now. You can do it in baby steps. You can do it in 7 minutes a day. Find your place, find your purpose, get back to who you truly are. Because like you, I think I was, I didn't realize when I came out of corporate and went to do the work that I'm doing now, how much that framed how I thought, how I behaved, how I showed up, and how far away I had gotten from my authentic self and my authentic influence. Yeah. So
It's
that
sneaky, isn't it?
resonates. It's so sneaky. It is so sneaky.
Yeah, it
And
happens overnight.
yeah, it really, really does. And so the sooner that you have those introspective moments to really go deep, I think that the 28-year-old woman listening, this is a practice you put in place now. Don't wait till you're my age. Do it now, because you will find those discoveries along the way and make those pivots early on in life. And so much about saying so true to who you are. You've got a authentic influence masterclass coming up, or a community of sorts. Tell us about that, because I'm sure people listening are like, how do I learn more? I want to do this. Where do I sign up?
I love that. Thank you so much. First, I would love to say that I love the idea of the 3 whys and the incremental pivots. It doesn't have to be a big pivot. Turn slightly. I love that. And apply. Application is the evidence of learning. So I absolutely love that. And thank you. My community is called Relevance. It is a school community. We are in pre-launch phase. And this will be a place where women can come to connect, to get the tools that they need, whether they're on their midlife journey, whether they are looking for the next promotion, whether they are just looking for a community of support. Relevance, we call ourselves back to ourselves. We tap into our natural inherent gifts, talents, and abilities that we were born with, and we positively impact the world with intention. It's going to be so much fun. We're going to have dance parties. I'm going to do some executive coaching. We're going to bring in other speakers, and I'd love to extend the invitation to you as well to impact the community. We're going to have a wonderful, wonderful time there. So I'm excited about it. And those of you who are interested, please just go to school community. It is called Relevant, and we open up the doors on the 15th of September. So we look forward to having you.
Yes. And in terms of your socials, where can the folks, we'll have it in the show notes, but where else can folks reach you?
Absolutely. So on Instagram, it is XO Donna Michelle. That is my moniker. On LinkedIn, it is Donna Hicks Mitchell. And on Facebook, it is Donna Hicks Mitchell as well.
Awesome. So you guys definitely want to check out this diva of the corporate space, the diva of all things authentic influence and relevance. I love it so much. As we wrap up, I want you to think about, what is the one thing you would invite the woman listening to start doing, stop doing, and continue doing in their journey?
I love that. What I would encourage our listeners to do is to start self-care journeys, because self-care is not selfish. So prioritize your self-care. What I would ask you to stop doing is to stop feeling guilty about prioritizing your self-care. It's so important, because you've got to put your own oxygen mask on first. And what I would ask you to continue to do is to continue to walk in the light of relevance. Know that you have something to offer the world. The world needs your gift. We are waiting for you. We are rooting for you. And we cannot wait to see your offering to the world. So, yeah, that's it.
I love that. When we think about it, wouldn't it be, I think we share this common passion of, if every human being, every single person has talent, every single person has these natural gifts and superpowers, right? They are agnostic to gender, to race, to ethnicity, to size, shape, faith background. And so if every human could find and live into and make a life living into their gifts and their superpowers, what a beautiful world it would be. And right, and let's take time to find that space. Let's take time to give ourselves that joy. I want to reflect. You had so many amazing nuggets. I've just some from my notes. This notion of trust yourself, and getting back to your intuition and your gut and listening to that. Don't ignore it or overshadow it with all of the narrative that we hear and that we were perhaps formed or raised with. Gratitudes, plural, and taking the time to journal about the deeper part of you that you're grateful for. The time you were resilient, the time you spoke up, the fact that you have a voice to do so. Those things that are core to you that you take with you in every new circumstance is such an important highlight reel and reminder of who we are. Yeah. Let's see. Another thing was, one of my favorites, carry your own fuel. Brilliant mic drop moment. Carry your own fuel, because you can't expect that somebody is going to be there to fill your tank. And, I'd layer onto that. And you spoke to this, you implied this, but know enough about yourself to know when your tank is starting to run empty, right? If you're a woman like me, you might drive your car on fumes every now and then, right? Don't do that. It's not good for your engine. And it's not good for your physical engine either. And so what are the cues that you need to start listening to know, hey, my fuel's running a little low? But because I'm carrying my own fuel, I know that it's time to stop and fill up and refresh and rejuvenate. And I think that we can all do a better job of that. So I love that. And the last note, and there's so many, but the last note I just want to put a fine point on is your UVP, your unique value proposition that every person has, every human being brings. And I like to say, I can't put in what God left out. So focus on the strengths, focus on that which is there that we all have. And you're going to live a life that's purposeful. Yeah.
I love that. Just know, and know that you know, that you
Right.
know, that you know, that you are relevant and the world needs you. Beautiful.
The world needs you. Well, Donna Hicks Mitchell, you are an absolute blessing. I thank you so much for the work that you're doing in this world, for the time that you are really changing lives. I'm so grateful that you had the experience to travel on your own and have those really profound introspective moments that led you on a journey that we're all benefiting from. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.
With that brings us to the conclusion of another episode of Climbing the Corporate Ladder Without Breaking a Heel. Thank you so much for investing this time in yourself. And I know how precious your time is. So thank you for taking a little bit of it to spend with me and my guest today. I believe it's so important that we look up, look forward, and we take those bold steps to intentionally work on our futures today. If this episode resonated with you, I invite you to go to Apple, Spotify, or wherever you tune in. Drop a rating for us, leave a comment. That's how these episodes will reach more people. And if you heard something that you thought a loved one, somebody in your circle would benefit from, be sure to share the podcast with them. Until next time, you can get a hold of me at CynthiaBentzen-Mercer.com and on all the socials at Dr. Cynthia Bentzen-Mercer. Remember, continue to take bold moves and invest in your future today.